Hey everyone. You know, I've been a fan of football for as long as anybody else has. And I guess the question right now for three franchises in three cities, and their fans is who is LA bound? Who is Los Angeles bound? Now, by now, we'll probably have an answer, or at least have a closer um, idea exactly of who will be, LA bound. We'll have that answer. But the question is exactly who will it be? Now, I know personally as a fan, when I hear rumors of a team that I'm a fan of, whether it's the Oakland A's, the Kansas City Royals, the San Francisco Giants, the 49ers, the Golden State Warriors, the Sacramento Kings, you name it. When I hear the possibility that they may end up moving to another town, to another city, to another location, it worries me. Just like any other fan, it worries you. Just like any other fan, it worries you. For me, however, when something like news goes around that a team like the Niners will still beat San Francisco Niners or San Francisco 49ers and not the Santa Clara 49ers, it's kind of beneficial. Yes, they're in another city, but because it's in such close proximity of San Francisco, they were able to retain that name. Same with the Dallas Cowboys. Some might say, well, Dallas and Arlington are not that close. Well, they're a little closer than you think. They may not be as close as San Francisco and Santa Clara are, but they're close enough for the Cowboys to attain the name of Dallas. So, they are like in driving distance, if you will. So, with that said, with that said, with that said, the question is who out of the three teams of the Rams, the Chargers, and the Raiders could be LA bound? Now, you might ask the question, well, why were the 49ers and Dallas Cowboys able to retain their names? Why are any of these teams that have different names able to retain the city that they're obviously not there, they're obviously not at anymore, or they don't call home anymore? Well, it's mainly because San Francisco and Dallas are more established, global renowned names, city names, global, well renowned, global, worldwide city names. They're more known, I hate to say this, than Santa Clara and Arlington. That's why they're able to retain them. And that's not a lie. That's why they're able to retain them because Dallas is more well known than Arlington. A lot of people may not like that. And San Francisco is more well known than Santa Clara. So the question would be, so the question obviously would be for any fan, let's say you're a Chargers fan, you might ask yourself, well, will San Diego be able to stay San Diego? No, not really. Not really. Because you see, even though San Diego is a very well known city, so is Los Angeles. In fact, Los Angeles, as much as people may not want to admit it, is more well known and famous than San Diego. So, with that said, if the Chargers were the ones selected to move over to Los Angeles, they'd be the LA Chargers. They'd be the Los Angeles Chargers. And they've been that before. I think in the first year or two of existence, they were the Los Angeles Chargers. True, it wasn't a long stay, but they were still the Chargers. Now, now there is a possibility that they could work out something where they retain the San Diego Charger name, but have to play in Los Angeles. It can be done. Then you have the Rams. St. Louis is a very well known city, known as the gateway to the West and gateway to the East, whatever you want to call it, the gateway to the West. And St. Louis has had and the Rams have had somewhat of a successful history there. They won a Super Bowl there. They've gone to the Super Bowl twice as being part of St. Louis, as far as I remember. And they've done fairly well. True, some of the seasons have not been very good bright spots, but they've done pretty well. So the question is, will the Rams end up going back to LA? Well, let's not forget, the Rams were the Los Angeles Rams to begin with. Just like a lot of fans in Seattle are always hoping for the Supersonics to come back to Seattle, which almost happened earlier this year or late last year with the possibility that the Kings might have ended up there and become the Supersonics. Thankfully, and I'm not trying to be mean here, but as a fan, thankfully that did not happen. But originally, the Rams were always the Los Angeles Rams. Take Cleveland, for example. True, the Browns have not had a good season, let's face it. But when the original Cleveland Browns left for Baltimore, a lot of fans were hoping to get Cleveland another team. In fact, some fans were hoping they can get a team just to name them the Browns again. So instead of acquiring a team from another city, they just expanded, and thus the Cleveland Browns were uh, resurrected. They were basically resurrected. They were reborn, rebooted, if you will. Once again, they were basically resurrected from the dead. It's same with Baltimore. I remember one season or so, the Indianapolis Colts played a game in Baltimore. I think it was an anniversary, it was a preseason game or something, or might have been a preseason game, and also a way to test out if maybe Baltimore was a ideal city for a football team, which obviously it was because the Ravens are there. And the fans in Baltimore that one time were so ecstatic to have the Colts back in town because this was their team. This was their team. This was the Baltimore. To them, to some of these fans, let's face it, they'll look at Indianapolis and say, "Yeah, you can call yourself you can say that's your team, Indy, all you want, but that's our team." And to us, they're not Indianapolis Colts, the Baltimore Colts. And that one game they had, I don't know if it was a preseason game or whatever, obviously showed that the fans in Baltimore wanted the football back. And if they could, they wanted the Colts back. But instead, they got the Ravens, which proved to be a success because look, the Ravens have brought multiple Super Bowls, as far as I know, to the city of Baltimore. Now, with that said, this is the same thing with Los Angeles. There's a lot of Rams fans that want in LA that want their Los Angeles Rams back. They want them back, and if the chance at getting them back with the proposal of a new stadium, which could host a future Super Bowl and maybe a future WrestleMania, is any chance of that happening, then they're going to take it. Let's face it, they're going to take it. But then we get to a team that, as much as my family may not like to hear this, I am respectful of. I am somewhat of a fan, not as big of a fan as I am for San Francisco 49ers. 49ers will always be number one. But this is a team because region wise, and this is something I was taught by my dad, as long as you're in the region that you're in, you got to cheer for you should at least respectfully cheer for the team that's in that region, whether you really like them or behind them or not. A good example is when I lived in Kansas, when the Kansas City Royals or the Kansas City Chiefs were in the playoffs, we cheered for the St. Louis Rams and we cheered for the St. Louis Cardinals. There you go. So we still had teams to cheer for because they were sort of in our region. Same with the Oakland Raiders. True, my family may not look fondly on them. Some of my family and relatives may not look fondly on them for the fact that they moved to Los Angeles one time back in the early 80s, I think 83 or something like that, and didn't come back until the early to mid 90s. So true, some of my family and friends Now, some of my family and relatives may not be too fond of the Raiders because of that, but still, I've always kind of carried a little bit of a special place in my heart for them because they were originally a Bay Area team and currently, as we speak, as of right now, are still a Bay Area team, which thus is in my region. So I always going to carry a fondness for them in a sense, and that can be said for my mom. That could be said for my sisters. Whether they want to admit it or not, they'll always carry a fondness for them. True, they may not forgive them for moving away and becoming the Los Angeles Raiders, but they still they still carry a fondness for them. They do. And my family is basically my overall family is kind of like split down the middle, if you want my honest opinion. Some of us are for Niners, some of us are for Raiders, and people like me, we're just stuck in the middle. Like, hey, I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm Niners all the way, number one. But Raiders are always going to be right there if I need someone to cheer for. If let's say, well, this year they won't get in, but let's say they would have, we these would have had a team to cheer for in the playoffs from a regional standpoint. So the question is, what three of these teams are going to go? What three of these teams are LA bound? Could two of these teams be LA bound? You see, that is the question. You see, you've got St. Louis, you got San Diego, and you got Oakland all bidding to keep their teams. Oakland's even requested some extra time to get a stadium proposal made up to try to keep the Raiders in Oakland. But the question's going to be, who out of the three is LA going to choose? Will they choose one or will they choose two? I mean, let's not forget, LA has had two teams before. They have. They had the loss when the Raiders were there. They had the Raiders, and when the Rams were there, they had the Rams. And that could happen again. We can end up being. It could be deja vu all over again. We could end up having L.A. Raiders and L.A. Rams playing in the same stadium like they did before. We could have the Chargers and the Rams, for all we know. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. For an instance, that the people in LA would love more than just one team. And they would love to have one team from each conference playing and representing their city. They would love to go back to that kind of old school that old school style where even with this new venue, you had two teams sharing it, and you sort of had an in-city rivalry game, even if it was preseason between the two. But the question is, which one of the three, if not two of the three, are going to go? Well, this is my personal opinion. It's my personal opinion. I think, in all honesty, it's my personal opinion. It's not because, like I say, I have a fondness and a place in my heart for them. But I think Oakland is going to find a way to keep the Raiders. I really do. Because I will be honest with this, and I will be honest with this. If they do make that move back to LA, as far as my family is concerned, that's it. I've got cousins that still support them. I have a brother-in-law's stepfather that supports them. But if they go back to LA, that's it. That is the end. That is the last straw. I have a cousin-in-law. One of my cousin's husband, my cousin-in-law. He's a Raiders fan, but I know that if they go straight for LA. That's it. That's the last straw. We're done with them. They are public enemy number one. And that's the truth. That's a fact. But I think Oakland's going to do whatever it takes to keep them. Because look, they did magic, if you will, to try to keep the A's in Oakland until a couple of years ago when there was an idea of moving the A's to San Jose. They kept the A's in Oakland. So I've got a feeling they're going to pull this out. I got a feeling the Raiders are going to be okay because despite how people feel merchandise wise, from a revenue merchandise wise, let's face it, the Raider t-shirts, jerseys, helmets, whatever you want to call them, any kind of merchandise has been selling more than it ever has sold ever since the Raiders went back to Oakland. So I believe, even from a revenue standpoint, from a financial standpoint, the Raiders are going to stay in Los Angeles. I mean, not Los Angeles, but in Oakland. I got a feeling the Raiders are going to stay in Oakland. I'm sorry about that. Just from a revenue, if not financial standpoint, they're going to stay in Oakland. Now, what does that mean, though, for the other two teams? Well, this is where it's going to get a little tricky. You know, San Diego's not going to want to give the Chargers. You know that. And you know, St. Louis ain't going to want to give up the Rams. But financially, I think the team, or should I say teams, that will go to LA will be the Rams and the Chargers. I hate to say that, and I hate to disappoint any Chargers or Rams fans out there, but that's the truth. I feel that if any two teams are going to end up in LA, because like I said, you know LA, they're going to want to have maybe more than one team from both conferences. They're going to want to have one team each from both conferences in their city representing it. And I've got a feeling it's going to be the Chargers and it's going to be the Rams. Now, if they do go with one team, though, then I feel San Diego is going to be okay, which means St. Louis, as good as a run as you guys had, the Rams, it sounds like, are going to head back home. That's what I feel is going to happen. I feel that the more than likely, truthfully, that if any team, any one of these three teams, if it's just one, ends up being brought to Los Angeles, it's going to be the Rams. Because financially, St. Louis, you could do whatever it takes to get them to stay, and I hope you do. You know, but I believe the Rams are the more likely choice to head to LA. I really do. You know, and it is hard to see that happen, but I think that's the best option. It's going to for LA. It's for LA in a sense to get the Rams. It will be the best option. Now, again, though, even though they're the strongest candidate out of the three to end up moving to LA for Los Angeles to obtain or regain, if you will, I'm not. You know, I'm not ruling out the fact that they could try to get two. I'm not ruling that out. I mean, yes, the Rams, in my opinion, as much as I liked the Rams when I was out there and everything, because they were, from a region standpoint, they were the one NFL team that we can get behind, along with the Chiefs, to give us a strong playoff run and maybe that possible, you know, I-70 Super Bowl that we never had. To me, they are the most likely candidates to end up going to Los Angeles. I really do. And again, I'm not ruling out the fact that LA is not going to try to get a team from both conferences each to kind of have what they used to in the past with the Chargers and the Rams, because I still believe they're going to try to do that too. But the strongest candidate, in my opinion, from a financial standpoint, that I believe is going to head out to Los Angeles and call LA their home once again is going to be the Rams. And if LA, and again, I'm not ruling it out, tries to go for both teams so they can have one team from the AFC and one team from the NFC, just like they did before, I'm not ruling out the fact that they're going to try to go for the Chargers either. So, in my opinion, again, these are my opinions of who I feel will go and who I feel will remain where they are. And again, I'm not saying it because I have a little bit of a fondness or because they are a Bay Area team and it's the merchandise and everything is selling great, which it is. It's been selling better than it ever has since they've been back in Oakland. But But when you get sort of this rivalry between the Niners and the Raiders, that's something you can't really replace. It's kind of like with the A's and the Giants when they have when they play either regular season or preseason, in the home stadiums, people get behind it. So, and that's the same with the Warriors and the Kings. So to me, I think the Raiders are going to probably stay in Oakland. That's probably the best decision they're going to get. And I believe the Chargers and the Rams are the more likely candidates. The Rams, in my opinion, the strongest candidate to go, while the Chargers, they're up there as well as a possibility with a slight chance that they could stay in San Diego. And again, I'm not ruling out the fact that LA may try to go for both teams to have one from each conference. So, but to me, individually, if it came down to one team ending up leaving their hometown for LA, it's going to be the Rams. So that's just my opinion on it, on who I think of the three NFL teams, who I think the who basically this is just my opinion of what who I think out of the three NFL teams are LA bound. So let me know what you guys think down below. Give me your thoughts, and I will talk to you all later.